The following podcast contains discussions of death, disease, and multiple apocalypses. Apocalypsi? Multiple apocalyptic situations that will remind us of how lucky we are to be alive right now. Also, spoilers. Lots of spoilers. Don't say we didn't warn ya. Hi, I'm Gabby, and this is Digestibles, a podcast about all the books you were told to read but probably didn't. I hope you enjoyed the last 5 episodes where we explored some of the most famous lovers in classic literature. If you haven't yet, check them out on Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Google Podcasts. But this week, we're gonna do something different. I'm taking a little break to catch up on my reading, so welcome to Digestibles' very first Minisode. It's real simple. I'll pick a topic and count down some of the most popular books on that subject. Stuff that you should definitely check out and add to your TBR pile. Basically books I'm telling you to read, but you probably won't. Anyway, for this one, I thought we'd keep things light and upbeat because the world is depressing enough, right? Yeah, let's not do that. Instead, let's depress ourselves further by taking a look at some of the best, or worst depending on your point of view, fictional diseases in literature. For this list, we're sticking with all the ooey-gooey made-up maladies that you wouldn't want to get infected with. Here are people in situations that are way worse than us, and yes, I know, bold of me to assume that things won't get any worse here. But that's the power of pandemic fiction. It helps us confront our fears of the prospect of the world as we know it destroyed, but also comforts us with the possibility of survival. And though in these stories, humanity ends up more likely the villain rather than the actual deadly disease, humanity also turns out to be the cure. Aw, ain't that sweet. We're sticking with pretend diseases for this one, so stories about the bubonic plague, influenza, cholera, Ebola, etc. That'll be for another time. So with that, let's dig into the top 10 fictional pandemics you wouldn't want to be caught alive in. Number 10. The White Sickness in Blindness by Jose Saramago. One day, in a city that could be anywhere and a country that could be any country, people suddenly go blind. Even more mysterious, instead of everything fading to black, everything goes white. As far as sickness goes, sudden blindness seems tame in comparison. Of course, that doesn't stop the world from collapsing. After all, how can the blind lead the blind? Soon, governments, schools, businesses, they all stop functioning. Military solutions just make things worse, and everything devolves into chaos. But just as quickly as it strikes, the blindness suddenly lifts and everything is okay again? Yeah, probably not. Number 9. The Plague of Insomnia in 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Now, who here hasn't experienced a sleepless night or two? If you say you haven't, I'm calling your bluff. I'm sure all of us have crammed for an exam or a project at least once in our lifetimes. Or maybe you just unknowingly stayed up to binge watch Riverdale on Netflix or played Animal Crossing until 5 in the morning. Hey, it happens. In this fictional plague, sleep is impossible and tiredness no longer an issue. Victims of the disease are identified by their wide, glowing, cat-like eyes. Sounds cool, doesn't it? Maybe not. At first, the townspeople think nothing of it. After all, everyone's super-duper productive now. But the insomnia soon leads to amnesia, with people forgetting the names of things, their histories, each other, and even their own identities. They eventually get over it, though, since this section is only a small part of a long, long, long novel. It's not called 100 Years of Solitude for nothing. Number 8. Vampirus in I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. A strain of bacteria turns people, both living and dead, into terrifying creatures of legend. except for one person. But who is more monstrous? The monsters or the man? This 1954 novel has become the blueprint for most works in the zombie apocalypse genre that we all know and love now. The Walking Dead, anyone? Just replace zombies with vampires. And here, most of the vampire lore, like sharp teeth, the dependency on blood, and the physical aversions to garlic, sunlight, and mirrors, are explained away by psychology or science. That's pretty cool. As far as survivability goes, this one's not that bad. There are 2 strains of the infection, one you can get while you're alive, aka infection, and one you can get when you're dead, or reanimation. And as it turns out, that one strain you get when you're alive has a treatment of sorts that will allow you to spend short periods of time in daylight. And fortunately, actual science has yet to prove the existence of real vampires, so we're pretty safe from this one. For now. Though, if I'm being honest, I find vampires pretty cool, and I personally wouldn't mind. But anyway, okay, back to the matter at hand. You know how we mentioned zombies? Well, a list of fictional pandemics wouldn't be complete without at least one zombie apocalypse. Number 7. The Solanum Virus in World War Z by Max Brooks. I mean, you probably know how a person turns into a zombie already, and if you don't, what rock have you been living under? But fine, here's a recap. 1. The virus is transmitted from person to person through contact with bodily fluids like saliva or blood. Symptoms include dementia, paralysis of your hands and feet, and a nasty-looking wound. The virus travels to the brain, kills it dead, and replaces your normal human impulses with not-so-normal human impulses, aka the relentless need to feed on the living, breathing population. This book, written in 2006, particularly calls out the many ways governments are unprepared for such disasters. It starts with denying the problem and ends with 2 decades of war, an almost extinct population, and the world and its ecosystems destroyed. But, good news, aside from zombie ants, I suggest you Google it. Science has also yet to prove the existence of zombieism in humans, so we're probably safe from this one too. The next disease, though, will make you wish for the good old days, when zombies were just corpses hungry for brains. Number 6. Shen Fever in Severance by Ling Ma. This fungal infection attacks the nervous system and causes a quote-unquote fatal lack of consciousness, dooming anyone who is fevered to keep repeating dull daily routines in an infinite loop until they eventually drop dead. Like setting the table or brushing your teeth over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You get my point. Think zombie, but make it millennial? In fact, this 2018 novel's outbreak cuts quite close to home. The fever starts in China, the death toll rises quickly, cities shut down, the fashion industry starts making couture PPEs, and workers are forced to just keep working, clinging to the dream of a new normal, while the world slowly falls apart around them. Jeez. And yes, like in most pandemic fiction, the disease is a metaphor. I'll leave you to figure out what it is yourself. Number 5. Congolese Influenza in The End of October by Lawrence Wright. The eerie thing about this book is that the author began writing it in 2017. It was released just this May, and it gets mostly everything right. Quarantines, people resisting quarantines, shortage of masks and empty supermarkets, overwhelmed hospitals, conspiracy theories, ineffective governments, the list goes on and on and on. Which begs the question, are we just that predictable as a species? Also, since this one's based on so much research, the scenario is quite possible. So prepare yourself for a scary read. The outbreak begins in a prison camp in Indonesia, and it's a coronavirus that causes viral hemorrhagic fever, with symptoms that include bleeding from the eyes. And oh, your lungs become a frothy mess. It eventually takes out 7% of the world's population, including celebrities like Taylor Swift, Brad Pitt, and Anderson Cooper. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a world without Taylor Swift and folklore. I mean, come on, have you heard the album? Number 4. Georgia Flu in Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Imagine a world where 99% of the population dies within weeks. That's 7.7 billion people. That's brutal, man. The rest of the lucky, or is it unlucky, 1% are left in a world so violent, people tattoo knives into the skin of their forearms whenever they've had to kill someone. The pandemic is so devastating that it resets the world calendar to year 0. The disease itself isn't described that much, but it's a swine flu similar to the 2009 H1N1 virus. So symptoms would include the usual: fever, dry cough, headaches, muscle pain, and all that. The only difference is, you get it real quick and you die real quicker. In reality, though, a disease like this would be impossible as it would most likely kill its hosts before it has time to properly spread. So, thanks, reality. Number 3. Andromeda in The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. A meteor crashes into a satellite. The satellite returns to Earth, bringing with it a little extraterrestrial bacteria, that is. Unfortunately, not the friendly neighborhood alien type, but a rapidly mutating microbe that causes instant and fatal blood clotting. Blood clotting, by the way, is when your blood thickens from liquid into a more solid state. Clotting prevents blood loss when you're wounded, but is extremely dangerous when not needed and may lead to a heart attack or a stroke. Within the story, the scientists figure it out. Everyone with so-called normal blood is at risk, while people with abnormal blood are immune because the alien bacteria can only grow in a certain pH level. Woo. But considering how much we know and don't know about space, this scenario doesn't seem that impossible, I guess. The truth is out there, guys. Number 2. Captain Trips in The Stand by Stephen King. Stop me if this sounds familiar. This condition is a super flu-like virus that is highly contagious and highly lethal. As your body tries to fight it off with a fever, the disease simply mutates into different strains, making immunity almost impossible. Yeah, ringing any bells yet? Of course, this is fiction, so Captain Trips is actually Project Blue, an illness created by the US military as a biological weapon that is accidentally set loose in America instead. When they see that there's no way to contain it, they decide to go all scorched earth on the rest of the world and release it so that everyone's destruction is mutually assured. Nice. Similar to the Georgia flu, the mortality rate of this one is a high 99.4%. Cities are littered with dead bodies with no one left to bury them. And like in most apocalyptic fiction, even if you don't get the virus, other things are likely to kill you. So yeah, nope, let's not go there. Ever. Please. Number 1. The Red Death in The Mask of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. This famous short story begins with a description of a disease that's provided nightmare fuel for centuries for readers since. It starts with sharp pains, sudden dizziness, and then the bleeding starts. Blood pours out of your pores and drips out your whole body, especially your face. The whole seizure lasts about half an hour, so it's relatively quick. Anyway, this horrible plague has been devastating the country for a long time. And of course the nobles, rich people, and leaders of the land decide that the best way to deal with it is to quarantine an abbey and throw a massive party while waiting for all the peasants to die. Real smart, you guys. The Red Death decides to crash the party anyways, and yes, karma, get it. Eat the rich. We love a petty personification of death and the idea that you are never safe, no matter how much you hide from it. Death comes for all. So that's it, our top 10 fictional pandemics. Did we miss one of your favorites? Tell us with the hashtag #DigestiblesPodcast. Thanks for listening, you guys. Again, I'm Gabby, and you can find me at Gabby Pasqua Vox on social media. Special thanks to Jazz for composing our theme music. And hello to our listeners in Spain, Brazil, and Mexico. Pretty cool. Thanks for listening, you guys. Tune in next week when we return to our regular programming. In the meantime, wash your hands, wear your masks, and please, stay at home if you can. Bye! Digestibles is part of Connect, a podcast network, bringing together entertaining stories to spark your imagination. For more awesome content, follow us on social media @Connect Podcasts.